let's start with Donald Trump's Liberation Day tariffs. And the Liberation Day thing was bizarre. This is all based on this idea that there's a balance of trade in a deficit in America because a massively wealthy, very, very populous country somehow miraculously imports more than the average smaller, much poorer country. I mean, this is no beep Sherlock territory. That absurd press conference he gave where he had a board where he was announcing all these countries and their tariffs. Britain got off fairly lightly with just part of the 10% across the board tariffs. We've since done a deal which I don't think has actually come into force yet, even though it was announced, not actually in writing yet, cutting our steel tariffs and the car tariffs, because ours was going to be bigger at one point. It's all got very, very, very confusing. There's a 50% tariff on US goods, that's been suspended. They went up to 145% on China. And you could think, I don't care, I don't live in China or America. And of course, that's now been suspended. They're coming to some sort of arrangement there. But actually, the impact on world trade, the impact on business confidence, and planning is huge. The impact on consumers. Tariffs are taxes. They're paid for ultimately by the consumer, whether you're an American consumer or British consumer. Bad for all of us, I would say, unless you're protecting a key industry like farming, steel, car manufacturing. That's understandable, and most countries do that. But it looks like this court has said you're using emergency powers to give you executive power to make this order that you don't have, because he claimed that it was emergency, that, you know, this was a massive hit to the American economy, as if it was a war or a pandemic, which it isn't. And they basically said 3 judges, one of them appointed by Obama, but one by Reagan and one by Donald Trump himself, saying, no, there isn't an emergency. You don't have this power. The Trump administration said they're going to appeal it, could go all the way to the Supreme Court. Which way do you think it will go? And do you agree with the ruling?
Well, the tariffs seem crazy. Economically, they're crazy and all the rest of it. And Donald Trump is ruling by diktat. Presidential decree is coming out. And this is the first sign, as I said earlier, of the US Constitution holding the president to account, because he cannot rule like a dictator. Now, it's a relatively low-level court that has said that this is illegal. There are a number of other legal hoops that Trump can go through, and of course the US legal system is politicized. So the 3 judges that we know who've made the decision have come from different backgrounds, appointed by different presidents. But if it gets to the Supreme Court, we know that there's a majority in the Supreme Court who have been appointed by Donald Trump, who are Trump fans, and they could overturn this ruling. And if that doesn't work, Donald Trump will find some other way of trying to get trade back into the United States. The impact's the same. There's a lack of confidence in trade across the world. Businesses are having to plan for the worst case scenario that these come in, and therefore prices are going to go up for everyone as they set the conditions for that. And there's going to be no confidence to invest in businesses, to create new jobs.
And you need certainty. I mean, Correct. You do need certainty. I mean, that's going to come into other stories as well. But just briefly, let's talk about Elon Musk. We always knew he wasn't going to stay working in government. He had a finite deadline. It was about a few months, which is, if you're not a formal employee, and he basically wants to keep control of SpaceX and Tesla, that's what's made him the richest man in the world. He's just trying to get a rocket off to Mars, for goodness sake. He's got other stuff to do. I mean, this man multitasks in a way. I mean, I've got to give up Netflix. I'm going to have to give up Netflix and Sudokus to get even a 0.0000001% done as much as Elon Musk gets done in an average day. It's embarrassing, frankly. But he's going to leave the White House. It's damaged his own personal wealth. He could probably afford that. It's damaged the image of his personal reputation, the image of Tesla, among all the lefties who think apparently you have to have the same views as somebody to buy their cars. Weird. Rover, you learnt that one, didn't you? But with your stupid car ads. But no, it was Jaguar, wasn't it? Jaguar. Yeah. But it is something. It is a shame, because this guy, I think this move fast and break stuff attitude is exactly what government needs. I'd love him. Now he's got a little bit of spare time now. Could he come and work in British government? Do you not think we benefit from a bit of Doge, Elon Musk activity?
I think you need radical thinking across the board, and I've said this about the Ministry of Defence in particular, and it's the same with every government department. It needs to be completely redesigned from the bottom up and from the top down. because there's so much waste in so many different places.
They're living in sort of a linear world, aren't they? An old-fashioned linear world before AI. Well, let's come on to the front page of the Telegraph today. But Britain's to unleash AI and an army of hackers on Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping. You're rolling your... For the benefit of those listening on radio, the eye roll there was pantomime-esque. £1 billion fund to have an army of hackers going to take on our enemies. What's not to like, Philip?
Oh, I think it's brilliant. It's already there.
Because it's been announced by the Defence Secretary, John Healey, today.
It's already there. It was formed in 2020. It's called the National Cyber Force. And, it's a combination of the Ministry of Defence, Defence Scientific and Technical Laboratories, MI6 and GCHQ all working together.
Usual suspects.
They've got a big headquarters, and the previous Tory minister said that they're carrying out offensive cyber capabilities and attacks against our enemies to protect the UK. John Healey's just said the same thing, but he said it's going to be under strategic command under General Jim Hockenhull, who I know very well, who's the commander of Strategic Command. This seems to be just a resubordination of something that's already existed, dressed up as something new that's coming in his Strategic Defence Review, so that gives them a good soundbite.
We have a lot of announcements coming up about defence spending and strategy coming up over the next month, really. And the only trouble with all of that is there seems to be announced about funding before you actually get the announcement on what the strategy is. And one of the things I've been saying for years, we need to spend more on defence and tackle the threats from Islamist extremism in the Middle East, but particularly Russia and China across the world. And we just need to upgrade our support, our defence anyway, and long before the invasion of Ukraine. But what I find extraordinary is this inability to think about it as what do we need, and then setting the budget based on that. But I don't think you can say, right, we're going to have 2.5%, or even people talk about in a miracle world 3% of our government spending on defence. We're going to end up in a war. And we are going to be needing to spend 8%.
Yes.
So why don't we just get ahead of the programme and just get on with it now? The more you spend on defence now, the less likely you'll have to spend on defence later, and the cheaper it will be, and the more likely you will avoid a war in the first place. I don't understand all this softly idea, but there is that problem, isn't there? People know when their mum's operation has been delayed, but they don't know whether there has been a new tank commissioned. It has a different impact on people's lives in the immediate future.
It does, and I've seen people argue to say the National Cyber Force is dealing with big strategic stuff, and this is a new military bit that's going to look after supporting the military and military operations. I've worked at this sort of level. They all have to work together. What the cynic in me is saying, what this is doing is resubordinating the National Cyber Force into the Ministry of Defence, so that the numbers that can come out will suggest that John Healey in his Strategic Defence Review is increasing the size of our defence force.
But it's not really.
In different ways, but it's not really.
I mean, again, this
That's
is life or death stuff. Oh, OK, fair enough. I thought it was just you'd had enough of me.
No, it's a brilliant force. It's a brilliant concept. It's definitely needed, but it's already there.
It's already there. OK. There's actually an awful lot of Labour's announcements have been of things that were already on the way, things that Rishi Sunak was planning to do, but then randomly decided to go out in the rain and announce a general election to lose. I mean, utterly bizarre. Makes you wonder whether Labour's got any sensible ideas themselves, which is interesting because today Keir Starmer is going to argue that Nigel Farage's fantasy policies, that's what he says, fantasy policies are going to lead to a Liz Truss-style economic meltdown. He's had the pledges on things like benefits and on tax rates and the things would cause mortgages, bills and rent payments across the country to surge. By the way, they already have, mate. And again, we know that there's lots of absolute lies that talked about Liz Truss's what she did. And by the way, all the things affecting our debt, which caused the meltdown in the markets when Liz Truss did it. We've got higher debt levels now. Under Labour. I mean, it's just insane. But Nigel Farage on Tuesday did a big set-piece speech. Parliament's not sitting. They always have a go at him for not being in Parliament when he's doing other things, but he was there making a speech on Tuesday in Westminster. Had a lot of cuts through, talking about reversing the cuts to winter fuel payments, scrapping the two-child benefit cap, and also a plan to slash income tax. The idea of hiking the personal allowance all the way to 20 grand a year, so you wouldn't pay any tax until you were earning 20 grand a year. Institute of Fiscal Studies said that one alone would cost between 50 billion and 80 billion a year, well, you're going to have to get the tax back from someone else. So, OK, you don't pay tax up to 20 grand, and then we're going to whack you with 40% tax or something. I think that is uncosted. I think that is fantasy, that policy. I think it's actually a policy I wouldn't support. I'm massively opposed to the scrapping of the two-child benefit cap. I do believe that we should reverse that cut to winter fuel payments, and politically it'd be crazy not to do that. But are Nigel Farage's policies any more fantastical than Labour's or the Tories, given A, they support net zero, and B, their manifestos were exposed by us and everyone else, Institute of Fiscal Studies and others, as completely made-up numbers ahead of the last election?
I don't think Nigel cares. He's creating sound bites to increase his popularity.
And most people don't pay attention to the detail.
Exactly. He's getting more airtime than Kemi Badenoch, more airtime than Ed Davey. He's only got 5 MPs, and Keir Starmer is singling him out to attack because he's running scared of him.
And that's the key thing.
That's significant.
I am very aware when the Conservatives, the leader of the opposition, Kemi Badenoch, when she makes a speech, she makes an announcement. We often don't even cover it on the show. Because you think, well, they're not in power. No one right now thinks the Tories are going to win the next election, certainly not on their own. Things can change. Never say never in politics. I wrote a piece about Nigel Farage possibly being the next Prime Minister. But it was about Elon Musk, and actually he's got more chance possibly of getting Nigel Farage into power at the next election than getting a rocket on Mars, and a lot of people, they were laughing at me last December. Oh, don't be so silly. Look at the polls now, guys.
Exactly.
Look at the polls now. I do better than Mystic Meg and all the economic and political forecasters on what I think is going to happen.
What are the lottery numbers this weekend?
I've been right about a lot more than they have, and certainly on policy. But again, for me, the key thing is any party leader is still supporting net zero. Lives in an absolute fantasy territory and is bankrupting the country. I'd love to hear from you, though. The Prime Minister accusing Nigel Farage of fantasy policies, which will lead to a Liz Truss-style economic meltdown. What are your reaction to that? And in particular, why you think the Prime Minister is attacking Nigel Farage? Barely mentions the Kemi Badenoch and the Tories these days. Is he running scared? Should he be? Give us a call, 0344 499 1000. That's the number to call to have your say on that. Of course, you want to talk about Donald Trump and his tariffs or any of the other big stories in the news. The potential doctors' strike. Do they have your support if they went on strike for more pay? 29% pay rise? Really? I'd love to hear your thoughts. 0344 499 1000. You can text the word talk as well to 87222. Get in touch on X at Talk TV. Calls are charged at the national rate. Text cost one standard network rate message. Let's talk about Britain's doctors. Resident doctors, as junior doctors are now called, they are being balloted right now by the British Medical Association whether or not they should go on strike to get this 29% next pay rise. 22% before, that was over 2 years. The average they actually got was 4%. But no reforms have actually come into place alongside them, interestingly. But Wes Streeting, the Health Secretary, says, look, the latest polls show, you used to have above 50% support for going on strike. You're now down below 40%. You don't have the backing of the public. Do you think that's true?
Well, if it's true, then the current government has got in with no backing of the public, and they're in. So Wes Streeting hasn't got the backing of the public yet. He's still making policy.
Good point.
I think our doctors and our nurses don't get paid enough, and I think they should get paid more. However, holding the country to ransom for 29% at a time when they can see that everything's strained. These are professional people who can see what it is that's going on, and if they're selfishly going out when others can't get it, they can always leave being a doctor and go and be a train driver and earn more money. Well,
they could, and again, we don't want them to do that.
No,
or they could go to Australia or Canada. I don't think most of them are going to do that. I think one of the problems we've got, GPs working a 3-day week because they got paid enough that they could get away with doing a 3-day week, and then you've got shortages of GPs. That's been a massive issue. And it's not just young mums. It's it's middle-aged couples working as doctors. Do we have to do a 3-day week? They go, oh, but it's such a stressful 3 days. Well, it wouldn't be if you worked a 5-day week. And I think if you take on a job like that, that is a 5-day week job. Not like silly job. Not like silly. Well, my mum was doing it 5 days a week and then being on call at the weekend as well. Not a silly job like what I do. Yapping on the radio is something. But people aren't going to die if they can't tune in. You'll feel like you are if you can't tune in, but it's not the same as actually having a health emergency. But we do have an issue. We don't have enough. The NHS has got a shortage of key people. No shortage shortage of net zero officers or DEI officers or HR, but a massive shortage of people who are paid less than all those people, most doctors and nurses. And if we're going to get people in any other field, you're in IT. You can't hire a new IT employee. You have to up your wages and up what you're offering. But why is it any different in the NHS? I don't think people should be doing a job for the love of God, just sort of being putting on the uniform. But we need to pay people the money to get them in to actually do the job.
We do, and I think we need more radical thinking. As I've said before, I think to get more people in to do medical degrees and nursing degrees and all the rest.
We limit the number of people who could do medical degrees in this country madly.
Yeah, we should take the limits off. We should not charge tuition fees for people who want to go in there. All of a sudden, people are going to.
Or you have to do 10 years in the NHS,
and then
we'll write off your fees.
And then you say, but by not charging, you've got a 10-year penalty or a 10-year return of service. That's something that the military used to do whenever they pay you to go through a degree. You had to do a
But the key thing about a lot of these doctors, they're not the ones, the consultants who are earning a fortune. A member of my family, a lot of the oldies are getting the cataract operations, but being told, like, you've had one cataract operation on the NHS, but you've waited 6 months for it, and then you can have your second one, but it'd be another, basically, 4 to 6 months for the second one. Well, okay, so, and how much would it cost to go private? I don't know, £5,000 or something. And
we'll get them tomorrow.
Friday.
Yeah.
I mean, literally,
it's the
same doctor. It's the same NHS consultant. And they, most of them get most of their work from NHS patients who can luckily afford to go private there. But that's just not good enough. It's just not good enough. I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Do get in touch, 0244 499 1000, as there's a number to call. Let's also talk about building reservoirs. I'm all credit to Labour. I do agree with them. I mean, I always say I have no party affiliation. There are parties I feel more of an affinity to, and you'll probably guess which ones they would be by my views on certain policies and certain people. But all credit to the Labour Party saying we are going to rip up a lot of the planning laws to get companies to build more houses, to get through some of these major infrastructure projects like reservoirs. Announcement today that 2 new reservoirs are going to be built, and amid this warning that we could basically run out of drinking water in some areas within the next 10 years because they haven't got enough water stock. It can rain for 9 months in this country, but we don't store enough of the water, and then we end up with having a hose pipe ban for the summer where we get 3 sunny days and all our gardens are completely trashed. I genuinely, you watch your lawn that you've tended for months and months and months, and no, you're going to have to get the watering can out, get the cups out and pour water on that way. It's insane in a country that is this rainy that we do this. But for years and years, I mean, was it 4 decades or so, we've not built new reservoirs. But the same people who didn't build new reservoirs, the same people who basically imported millions upon millions more people to this country, did they not think that those people might need water?
Hang on, you're asking a government to think and to be sensible.
So painful.
Come on, you've seen too many governments. You know that they don't think, they don't plan ahead, they don't do things that might actually set things up for the future. They're reacting because
all you get is the grief. If you push through the planning and you upset people. Also, it's not like you're knocking down houses. These reservoirs are in the middle of nowhere.
Well, there's been a few where they've flooded villages and they've had to move people out in the
Well, don't build them there then.
Well, exactly. But I think geology dictates where you can put your reservoirs and bits and pieces, and that's why. But
apparently, these are going to take like years to build, which is extraordinary.
And that's why there's no shortage of water in Scotland or Wales, and Northern Ireland's got its own problems because of the pollution that's in Lough Neagh in the centre. But it's Southern England, and a lot of people around the rest of the country don't care what goes on in Southern England, and that's why people sit there with amusement on their face when they hear this. They do, but it happens across the. We've also got massive leaks from the water companies. Then we had those big fines on the water companies. Guess who's going to end up paying those fines? Not the water companies. Not the water companies. They're going to pass it on to us. It's insane. None of it works. It really doesn't. Look, there's so much more I want to talk about. Lots more calls coming in on both Keir Starmer attacking Nigel Farage, on Donald Trump, but also actually talk exclusive today about fly tipping. Yeah, it's organised criminals now. This is a multi-million-pound business, paying homeowners, paying to get you to take away the stuff, and then you just go and dump it. Ka-ching, ka-ching. It is big business.